G'day folks, this is Raymond Foster, hope you're doing great. In this video, we're going to take a look at the word ethnocentrism, why it's a pretext in the anti-white narrative, and how it is used to promote white erasure. This is what's taught in the system. This is the systemic racial discrimination, alright, that's being taught in schooling and therefore is mainstream racial hatred and racial discrimination. And then we'll go over why it's wrong, how it's a part of the anti-white narrative, how it's used in the anti-white narrative to promote abuse of innocent members of Western kind and ultimately further promote white erasure.
You're here to learn about what ethnocentrism is. I'm going to start with the basic definition that you would look up and then break it down in two examples, one smaller scale, one bigger scale. So the Google definition that you're going to find is this: evaluation of other cultures according to preconceptions originating in the standards and customs of one's own culture.
So it was just made quite clear there for us, if you're paying attention, that when dealing with this term, this word, this concept, ethnocentrism, in this modern day and age, we no longer use this word as the actual word that it is, ethnocentrism, to mean a focus on your group, on your family. That's what that actual real definition, if you look at the actual old dictionaries before they were changed by anti-whites, if you look at the etymology of the word, you trace the word back to the origins of the word, etc. Ethnocentrism means ethno, like your ethnicity. It's old Latin, Greek origin. Ethno, ethnicity, centrism, to be centered around something, to be focused on something. Ethnicity, extended family group, your genetic group. So the actual literal English translation of the word ethnocentrism is a focus on your family. You care about your family and you're focused on your family. Ethnocentrism, family centered. Ethno, family, centrism, centered, focused. You're family focused. You care about your family. That's the actual real definition of the word ethnocentrism. Again, you can look in the dictionaries, the ones that were around back in the day before the anti-whites changed the dictionaries. And you can look at the etymology of the word, the Greek, the Latin, all the source. It's not hard to figure out. Ethno is the original word where the word ethnicity comes from, which means your genetic family, your familiar, yeah? Your familiars. And centrism, center. I'm pretty sure if you know anything about the English language, you know what the word center means. It's that bit in the middle. Like you're looking at it and you're focused on that point in the center. Focus. You're centered. That's why as well we say we're centered when we're focused. Alright? Because that is the center. It means to focus. As opposed to having a broad general awareness, you have a pinpoint awareness, like a torch, a flashlight, a spotlight. Focus, center. The light is in the center, like a spotlight. It's not everywhere. It's centered, focused. That's the English word. That's what it means in English anyway. So, ethnocentrism, quite clearly, anyone can check for themselves, means you care about your family. Yet, in university, anthropology students, so these will be the experts who will teach the world what these things mean as experts in the subject in the field. They seem to say and think and use the incorrect definition, as we've just seen here and heard here from a university student who is an anthropology student, alright, who will one day be teaching children this subject as a qualified lecturer or teacher in university, etc., in primary school, high school, teaching that the word that we just went over, and everyone can now confirm 100%, you can even check for yourself, Alright, means family focused, ethnicity, family, centrism, focus, to have your awareness pinpointed on that thing. Alright, so to have your awareness pinpointed on your family. Your focus is your family. You love your family. Okay? Anthropology students are taking that concept of you love your family, and they're twisting it to mean you're some type of supremacist, you're a racial supremacist or something. So that anthropology students now being taught in university are going to be teaching children, the next generation, that a word that means to love your family and to care about your family is evil. You shouldn't care about your family, that's evil, and that makes you a supremacist to care about your own family. And they're teaching this in university now. This is what the students, the new teachers, are being educated with, to teach your children to hate you because you're part of their family. So they can't care about you or focus on their parents or love their parents, love their children. No, because that's evil. It makes them a supremacist. And this is literally being taught, and this is a student in university saying this, okay? This ain't me, this ain't Raymond Foster telling you this. This is a university student who's going to be teaching children telling you this. Alright? So, this just goes to show, right now, we ain't dealing with the real world. We ain't dealing with real definitions. We ain't dealing with the actual real world ethnocentrism. When we use the word ethnocentrism in this day and age, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with an anti-white meme pathogen, a pretext which only exists in the anti-white narrative. Okay? So anybody on the planet in this day and age uses the word ethnocentrism unless they speak about it and unfold it in the way that I just have. They're not speaking about ethnocentrism. They're speaking about this new anti-white racially discriminating idea, systemic racial discrimination, alright, which promotes the abuse of innocent children, etc. So that's ethnocentrism, the promotion of child abuse and racial discrimination, whether you say you support it or you say you're against it. Why? Because it exists within the anti-white narrative, and that's the only place it exists. Let's continue.
Basically what that means, if I'm gonna translate it into some English here, is that you're seeing your culture as the more correct way of life. What it says here in not so many words is that there's a big comparison happening. You're saying that your culture is better than other cultures because of the standards that you understand as normal set forth by your culture or where you live. So now I'm going to give you some examples as to why ethnocentrism isn't really a good thing. First, with a smaller scale example. Asian cultures around the world are known for using chopsticks, and where I live in the United States, we use forks, knives, spoons for meals, different meals. Yeah. Now in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really matter. We eat our food with different utensils, so what? But the moment that ethnocentrism comes into the picture is when you decide to say, oh, it's more proper or more natural or makes more sense to use a fork for this and not a chopstick for this, or vice versa. Oh, it's more correct to use a chopstick for this meal. So now let's talk about the bigger example that's probably the most applicable and most people have heard of. So any World War II history fanatics out there, I'm sure, or just anyone, is probably familiar with the persecution of the Jews by Hitler during World War II. Now, this is widely accepted as wrong, hopefully should absolutely never happen again with different people or different cultures.
Anti-whites will often use this type of doublespeak, where they will claim to be against racial discrimination, persecution, dehumanization, which leads to erasure and things like ethnic cleansings, while at the very same time promoting meme pathogens and pretexts from the anti-white narrative, which promote these things against Western kind. So, while saying she is opposed to ethnic cleansing of racial groups via dehumanization, she is doing so in a way in which she is promoting the dehumanization of all members of Western kind by sharing anti-white meme pathogens like this new anti-white version of the word ethnocentrism, which, as we can see here with the examples she's given, only relate to members of Western kind.
But the reason that this is ethnocentrism is because Hitler decided that his Nazi race was better than the Jewish people.
There you have it. There's the evidence right there from the horse's mouth that she is pretending to be against racial discrimination, dehumanizing groups of people in order to promote ethnic cleansings, in order to promote an ethnic cleansing. Okay, she just admitted it herself. Because we all know all people are ethnocentric. That's the natural state. Especially the other group of people she just mentioned. They're probably the most ethnocentric people on the planet. They're proud of being ethnocentric. It's part of their national pride. It's part of their patriotism of their homeland in the Middle East. So, if that's the case, that this apparent group is proudly, and they say it themselves, they're proudly ethnocentric. But that's fine, it's okay. And when ethnocentrism is used in conversation, it just means evil white people, in order to dehumanize innocent members of Western kind, to then justify racial discrimination and racial abuse on a systemic level against all members of that group. So you got to be careful when people are talking about these types of things, okay? Especially academic types, folk who have been to universities, because they use a lot of double speak. So they will say things like this. They'll say they're against racial discrimination while promoting racial discrimination against other groups, certain groups, usually white people, because they hate us for some reason. So let's continue and see what else she has to say.
He decided that because his way of life or his genetic information was more natural, it was okay for him to carry out mass executions of people who were less than him. This example of ethnocentrism is extremely important because you not only see ethnocentrism happening in a particular community, but you're seeing someone do something about it, and that is no-go, very bad. You do not want to say my culture is better than yours, therefore let me do this to you, or decide that I'm better than you, or take your land, take your whatever. Like, that's just not okay. So I hope these two examples on the smaller scale and the larger scale were helpful in your understanding of what ethnocentrism really is.
And thus, to conclude, we don't call ourselves ethnocentric. We don't support this idea. Why? Because it's not what it used to mean. It's not the word that used to exist, which is an English word, a white Western word. It's actually a non-white, non-Western, anti-white word from the anti-white narrative. It's not English. That's something people need to understand, need to distinguish. It's not Western. It's not English, it's not European, it's not white language, right? Not anymore. Used to be, but it's not anymore. Now, ethnocentrism is a non-white, anti-white word, okay? And you've heard what it means. That's what this is a university student. She's just told you in that video what she means, what it means. So, as some people need to, I think, understand and accept, is that just because you think a word means something, that doesn't mean that's what the word means. It means what it means in people's heads. It means what it means when people interpret the word. Not what it says in the dictionary, not what you learn in school that the word means. A word can mean something one year and then mean something completely different the very next year, or even the very next day. A word can have a completely different meaning, even if it says the same thing in the dictionary. Alright? So the actual meaning and the definition of a word is only in the heads of people. And that changes every day. People's minds change every day. So definitions are constantly changing. And that means words like ethnocentrism no longer mean what they used to mean, or what a sensible person would think it means. It means what this university student says it means. It means evil white person that you're allowed to abuse, you're allowed to racially discriminate against. Why? Because they're white. And because it's okay to attack and harm innocent white people because they're white, because we've dehumanized them, so it's all right. Fill in the blanks with the excuses of stolen land, blah blah, white privilege, blah blah, systemic racism. Fill in the blank with the excuses, but the fact of the matter is, it's just, you're white, so we've dehumanized you because of your skin color, because of your race, so it's okay to hurt you. We're gonna make good boy. We're gonna make up reasons, excuses, nonsensical lies, spin all this crap. We're gonna change the definition of words, alright? So you use words without even knowing what you're saying, so you actually confirm our lies, make us correct, by thinking you're saying things, because you're using old definitions, and you haven't caught up with the anti-white definitions. So they actually have folk confirming their own illusions in their own narrative, because they've changed the definitions of the words. It's the same way a court case works. You go in and you speak English in the court, and they're speaking legalese. It sounds like English, but it's a different language. It's the same thing with anything in the anti-white narrative. So the vast majority of words in the English language, or Western words, Western concepts, the vast majority of words and concepts in this modern day and age are in a new language called the anti-white narrative. That's an actual language which these new words are a part of. They're not our words anymore. They don't have the old definitions. Yet people are still using the same old English language, the same old words. The same way when you go to court and you speak English in the court, alright? But the judge isn't listening to you in English. They're listening to legalese. So you say something wrong, you're screwed. You screw yourself, alright? Because it's a different language spoken there. And if you don't know that, they've got it set up like that on purpose, so you set yourself up and they are always right, they always win. Same thing in the anti-white narrative, exactly like a court, alright? They have their own language and they've set it up, except they've used, in the same way with the court, they've taken the normal language of English, changed some of the definitions of some of the words, added in a few words here and there, alright? That way, you don't know what you're talking about, but they do. The anti-whites have done the exact same thing with all language, all words, all concepts. So, what does that mean? That means we have to make our own words. We have to create our own new language. Alright? From scratch. And that's why we have been doing that with Go Free. It's actually started to affect and change and influence the world as a whole. We've had people like Donald Trump, some of the most powerful people on the planet, say what we want them to say because we created a new language. And we've taken control of our own words again, our own language. We're no longer using the twisted fake language like the legalese fake version of English in a courthouse or a court system that's used everywhere in the world, called the anti-white narrative. Alright? Very important. So, and in this case specifically, this is why you don't use words like ethnocentrism. Okay? Instead, what do we say? We say, we love our family. Okay? In our language, how do we say that we have a focus on our group, our ethnic group, our genetic, familiars? We say we love our family. That's it. No ethnocentrism, no nationalism, nothing like that. That's all in the anti-white narrative. That's not our words, not our language. In our words, in our language, we love our family. That's it. Okay, our race is our family, and we love our family. Okay? Why do we have that language in our narrative, in our language that we're creating, those words? Because the definition of those words in their language, in the anti-white narrative language, are really good and positive. Loving your family sounds really nice, to love your family. Everyone, that's what you're supposed to. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. So in our language, to be ethnocentric, to love our race, it's love our family. So then when other people hear that, and they're just listening with the old language of anti-white narrative, the anti-white language, they hear something positive. They don't hear that we're saying we're nationalists or ethnocentric or that we love the white race. They just hear, oh, he loves his family. Sounds really nice, he loves his family. Cool. So we can say what we want to say, but we have to be conscious of how it lands and it's interpreted in people's minds, essentially. Take it easy, folks. Catch you next time.